It started like any other Joe Rogan interview. Michael B. Jordan sat across from him. It was supposed to be a normal interview. But there was already an invisible tension in the air, like the calm before the storm. None of them knew that after this they would become the most famous people in scandalous public forums. But before we begin, please subscribe to my channel. It will bring me closer to my goal of 1,000 subscribers. And now, let's begin. Michael, good to have you, man, Joe said, flashing a grin, but his voice carried that edge he got when he sensed a big catch. You're on top of the world right now, huh? Creed, Black Panther, people are saying you're the new king of Hollywood. Michael tilted his head, his smile polite but his eyes sharp. King? He gave a soft chuckle, dry as a snapping twig. I'm just doing my thing, Joe. No crowns. Joe nodded, his brows twitching upward. He leaned back in his chair, cradling his coffee mug like a shield. Humility's cool. But, people talk. Your career, it's not just talent. It's, what's the word, strategy. Michael's fingers stopped tapping. His gaze sharpened, though his voice stayed even. Strategy? He echoed the word, tasting it. I'd call it choices. You pick roles that matter. Or people you work with. Oh, for sure, Joe said, nodding, but his eyes narrowed. Choices. Like signing on for Black Panther. That was a risk, right? Big movie, big director, big pressure. The camera shifted slightly, zeroing in on Michael. His jaw tensed, almost imperceptibly, but he smiled, thin, barely there. Pressure? He shrugged. Pressure's when you don't know who you are. I knew what I was doing. The studio went quiet. The sound engineer behind the glass stopped chewing his gum. Joe took a sip of coffee, his fingers tightening around the mug. Interesting, Joe said, his voice dropping, like he was digging deeper. You always that sure? I mean, you're not just an actor. You're a symbol. People look at you and see, what? America? The dream? Something bigger? Michael leaned back, crossing his arms. He studied Joe, as if sizing up where this was going. People see what they want to see, he said. My job's to give them a story. Not a symbol. But it's not that simple, Joe said, leaning forward, his voice softer but laced with a challenge. You're not just telling stories. You're Michael B. Jordan. Every move you make is a statement. People call you, what, a voice of a generation? Michael's eyes narrowed. His fingers started tapping again, slower now, like a pulse. Voice of a generation? He repeated it, a hint of irony in his tone. Sounds like a burden, Joe. I just play roles. But the roles you pick, Joe paused, letting the words settle. They're not random. Fruitvale, Creed, Black Panther. You choose stories that hit hard. That's not just movies, is it? Michael glanced at the glass of water in front of him but didn't touch it. His lips tightened, like he was holding back more than words. It's movies, Joe, he said quietly. But it's also truth. Silence. The camera lingered on his face. Behind the glass, the sound engineer signaled the operator to tighten the shot. Joe leaned back, his smile widening, but his eyes stayed cold. Truth, Joe repeated, savoring the word. Love that word. But truth, it's slippery, isn't it? Especially in Hollywood. Michael didn't answer right away. His gaze flicked to the camera, then back to Joe. He smiled, but it wasn't the warm smile fans knew from Creed. It was a smile that hid something sharp. You want to talk about truth? His voice was calm, but there was a new edge, something hard, like steel. All right. Let's talk. Joe raised his brows, like he was surprised, but his eyes gleamed. He knew he'd struck a nerve. Oh, I'm all in, he said, spreading his hands. But first, tell me, when's the last time you could say the whole truth? No filters, no PR? Michael leaned forward, his hands flat on the table. His fingers stopped tapping. I say the truth every day, he said, his voice lower, almost a whisper. Question is, do people want to hear it? The silence in the studio thickened, like smoke. Joe took another sip of coffee. But his hand trembled, just slightly. The camera caught it, and the operator behind the glass signaled the sound engineer, keep the audio clean. That's deep, Joe said, his voice soft but probing. Because, people think you're careful. You keep everything tight, your career, your image. But truth, it slips out sometimes, doesn't it? Michael didn't look away. His eyes were like two dark pools, calm, but deep. Careful? He repeated the word, like it amused him. Joe, I grew up in Newark. You think I don't know what control is? Joe laughed, but it was short, almost nervous. Oh, I know where you're from, he said. And I know you're a fighter. But fighters fall sometimes, right? Like with Black Panther. There were rumors, that you weren't always thrilled with how things went. Michael's eyes narrowed. His hand clenched into a fist, briefly, before he relaxed it. Rumors? His voice was steady, but there was an icy note. Joe, you know how rumors work. Someone says something, and suddenly it's truth. But you don't deny the shoot was tough? Joe leaned forward, his voice softer, but his eyes locked on. I heard you and Ryan Coogler didn't always see eye to eye. Michael smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was a mask, holding something bigger. Ryan's a genius, he said. We worked. We argued. That's called creating. Creating, Joe nodded, but his smile was thin, like a blade. What about the pressure? Not from Ryan, but from, the world. You weren't just an actor in that film. You were a symbol. People expected you to say something more. Michael glanced at the water glass. His fingers brushed the edge, but he didn't pick it up. People always expect, he said softly. They expect you to be their hero, their villain, their voice. But I'm not theirs. I'm mine. Silence. The camera held on his face. Joe didn't look away, but his smile faded. Your own man, Joe said, testing the words. That's strong. But tell me, Michael, when's the last time you were just you? No cameras, no roles, none of this? Michael leaned forward. His eyes flashed, like a blade catching light. Right now, he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried something that made the sound engineer freeze. Right now. Silence. The camera hummed like a heartbeat. Joe didn't look away, but his fingers gripped the mug so tight his knuckles whitened. The studio waited. The world waited. Something had cracked, but it hadn't exploded. Not yet. Joe broke the silence first, his voice low, deliberate, like a boxer circling an opponent. Right now, he echoed, leaning forward, his elbows on the table. That's a hell of a statement, man. But saying you're your own man, that's gotta come with weight. People don't just let you be you, do they? Michael's jaw tightened, just for a split second. He leaned back, his hands sliding off the table to rest in his lap. His smile was gone, replaced by a calm that felt like the eye of a storm. They try, he said, his voice steady but laced with something raw. They push, they pull, they put you in a box. But I don't fit in boxes, Joe. Joe nodded, his eyes glinting with that predatory curiosity he was known for. He set the mug down, the faint clink echoing in the quiet studio. Boxes, he said, tasting the word. You mean Hollywood? The media? The fans? Because, man, you're not just fighting for roles. You're fighting for, what? Your story? Your truth? Michael's gaze flicked to the camera, then back to Joe. For a moment, it seemed like he might stand up, walk out, end it. But he stayed, his fingers curling slightly against the armrests. My truth, he said, the words slow, deliberate. You keep saying that word, Joe. Truth. Like it's something you can just pull out and put on display. You think that's what this is? He gestured faintly at the studio, the lights, the humming camera. A truth machine? Joe's lips twitched, a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. Maybe not a machine, he said. But this, he tapped the table, this is where masks slip. You're sitting here, no script, no director. Just you. And people are watching, waiting for you to. I don't know, crack? Michael let out a short, sharp laugh, but there was no humor in it. His eyes burned, not with anger, but with something deeper, something that made the air feel heavier. Crack? He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Joe, I've been under pressure since I was a kid. Auditions, rejections, people telling me what I can't be. You think I'm gonna crack because you asked me about truth? The studio felt smaller now, the walls closing in. The camera zoomed in, catching the faint sheen of sweat on Joe's temple. Behind the glass, the operator whispered to the sound engineer, "This is gold." But no one in the room moved. Joe didn't flinch, but his voice softened, like he was treading on thin ice. I'm not saying you'll crack, man. I'm saying, you're human. You've got scars, just like the rest of us. Like with Black Panther. That wasn't just a movie. It was a movement. And you were in the middle of it. People wanted you to be their king, their voice. That's gotta mess with you. Michael's eyes darkened. His fingers twitched, like he wanted to grab the water glass but thought better of it. Mess with me, he said, his voice low, almost dangerous. You think I don't know what that movie meant? To me, to the world? I carried that weight, Joe. I carried it every day on set, every day after. But I didn't do it for them. I did it for me. For my family. For my people. Joe's brows shot up, but he stayed still, letting the words hang. The camera panned to his face, then back to Michael's, catching the way his chest rose and fell, just a fraction faster. Your people, Joe said, his tone careful, like he was stepping around a landmine. That's heavy, man. But when you say your people, who do you mean? Because everyone's claiming you. The fans, the critics, the activists. They all want a piece. Michael's lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time, he looked away, his gaze dropping to the table. The silence stretched, and the camera caught it, the flicker of vulnerability, the crack Joe had been probing for. They don't get to claim me, Michael said finally, his voice quieter now, but no less firm. Nobody does. Not the fans, not the critics, not you. Joe froze. The words landed like a punch, direct and clean. Behind the glass, the sound engineer's hand hovered over the fader, as if expecting an explosion. But Joe didn't back down. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to match Michael's. Not me, he said, almost a whisper. Fair enough. But you're out here, in the spotlight, saying you're your own man. And yet, you're still playing their game, right? The Hollywood game. The fame game. Michael's eyes snapped back to Joe's, and for a moment, it felt like the room might combust. His voice, when he spoke, was slow, deliberate, each word a hammer strike. I'm not playing a game, he said. I'm building something. Something bigger than me, bigger than you, bigger than this damn show. And if you think that's a game, Joe, then you're not paying attention. The studio went dead quiet. The camera didn't move. The lights felt sharper, hotter, like they were burning into the two men at the table. Joe's face was unreadable, but his hands were still, no longer fidgeting with the mug. Then, slowly, he leaned back, a faint smile creeping onto his lips. Building something, he said, nodding. I respect that. But buildings fall, man. One wrong move, one bad headline, and it's gone. You ever worry about that? Michael didn't answer right away. He looked at Joe, then at the camera, his eyes steady but blazing with something unspoken. He stood, slowly, deliberately, his chair scraping against the floor. The sound was like a gunshot in the silence. I don't worry about headlines, he said, his voice low, final. I worry about legacy. He turned, unclipped his mic, and dropped it on the table with a soft thud. The camera followed him as he walked toward the studio door, his steps measured, unhurried. The door clicked shut behind him, and the silence that followed was deafening. Joe sat there, staring at the empty chair. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Behind the glass, the sound engineer muttered, "Holy shit." The operator kept the camera rolling. Catching Joe's stunned expression, the untouched water glass, the faint hum of the lights. Hours later, the internet exploded. Clips of the interview flooded X, each moment dissected, memed, debated. Michael B. Jordan walks out on Joe Rogan, screamed one headline. Jordan drops truth bombs, leaves Rogan speechless, declared another. Hashtags trended, oh man, MJ Truth, hashtag Rogan vs. Jordan. Some called it a meltdown, others, a masterclass in control. The studio lights had long gone dark, the coffee cold in Joe's mug. But in that quiet, empty room, one thing lingered, sharp and undeniable, Michael's final words, echoing like a promise kept. "I worry about legacy."